Tachanka may be receiving a rework in the future for Siege. Hey, what's up guys, Irish Tail here, and in today's video, I'm going to be discussing with you guys the recent AMA that two of the game's developers posted onto the Rainbow Six Siege Reddit. Now, for those of you guys that maybe haven't read it, basically I'm going to run down on the more interesting things that I've sort of pulled out of this, but as always, I will leave a link in the description below, so you can head over to the AMA yourself, read through the whole thing, and see if there's anything interesting I might have missed out that you want to read. Now, the AMA was filled out and was answered by Leroy Athanasov, I can't say his name, I apologise if that's completely wrong, who is the game's director, and Jean-Baptiste Hull, who is one of the game designers. Now, the questions were all related to operator design. Anything that was asked unrelated to that was basically just ignored. So these questions are all to do with operator design. So without any further ado, let's jump in. I'm going to cover some of the things that I found most interesting and the things that I really liked the look of. So one of the first questions that I pulled out, again, these are not in any specific order, was, will you ever buff the suppressor? Now, the reply we got for this was probably, and we are looking into it, from both of the individual designers. Now, obviously, here we get to see that Ubisoft have acknowledged that there is an issue with suppressors in the current Siege meta. For those of you guys that maybe aren't aware, maybe you like to use suppressors, they're actually really far out of meta currently in Siege. When the game first came out, suppressors were heavily used, a lot of people liked them, because we didn't really understand the maps, we didn't understand the workaround routes, things like that, so suppressors were really good because it meant you could shoot through a wall, there was no tracer fire, and you could get away with getting kills, and sort of, you know, disappearing off and people not knowing where you were shooting from. But as the game sort of progressed, as the maps developed, people, like, meta changed, suppressors became less and less useful, and we started using things like compensators, muzzle brakes, all these different attachments, and the suppressor has fallen really far out of the meta because it's not particularly useful. In Pro League, you rarely ever see the use of a suppressor because it's just not worth using, there's no point to it, and Ubisoft have acknowledged they are looking at a way to currently try and fix that and try and improve the game just a bit. Now, another topic they pulled out that I liked, that was really interesting, was a question of, do you have any plans for new shield operators? Now, Jean-Baptiste, he responded to this and he said, yes, we do, but there's an issue with shields, right? And they've essentially said, right, the issue with shields at the minute is that in the first-person camera, when you're playing a shield operator, it gives you this perception that you have a larger amount of protection than you actually do. It makes you feel like you're more protected, and, you know, you basically overestimate how much you're covered, and because of this, you can get taken advantage of, and they've admitted it's a really complex problem to fix, and they want to sort of try and address this first before dropping new shield operators into the meta. So I imagine what it'll be is if they do bring a new shield operator into the game, I have a feeling it'll be more like Fuse, where the shield will be an optional choice, as opposed to being a standalone shield operator like Montagne and Blitz. So personally, I think that's probably where they're going with that. Again, it's very vague, because obviously they don't want to give away all their information, but I kind of feel like that's what they meant when they said that, at least from my standpoint when I look at it. Another cool question that was asked was, how did you come up with the idea for a defense drone, or like a drone on defense for Echo? So basically, you know, this was a question of, you know, where did the design for the Yokai drone come from? Why did you think a drone on defense was such a good idea? Again, Jean-Baptiste, he responded, and he said the original objective was to create a defender that would anchor, but still be active throughout the entire round. This is why they gave him the drone. So generally the idea there is that Echo is a character that stays on the objective pretty much the entire time and uses his drone to help his teammates actively throughout the round, so he's not completely useless just by sitting on site, you know, he still has an active role. Although they have admitted this is not yet working as well as they'd hoped, so they're probably going to be looking to make some changes on Echo to try and improve him, try and make some changes here and there, you know, just try and make it so that we can see a little bit of a difference in how they are played, because again, currently, you know, the Echo drone is a bit weak, and once that Echo drone's gone, Echo is kind of pretty much useless, to be honest, like, as actively during the game. Once the site gets attacked, he's useful again, but there's this lull period where he sort of becomes unhelpful to the team, and it seems like Ubisoft are looking to try and address that and improve that for his character. Another question was, what do you think of the current trap meta? How would you change it? Do you think IQ, Thatcher and Tachanka need a buff due to the current meta? And they also mentioned something about Legion's backstory, which I'm not going to go into because that wasn't a little bit too interesting. But generally, Leroy, he responded and said he thinks that the traps are a big part of Siege due to the asymmetry of the game. Having defenders, you need traps to try and slow the attackers down. He said he thinks it's a good opportunity to create operators on the attack side to react and counter traps. So essentially the idea is because of the trap meta, it means we're going to see more operators in the future that are designed to try and counter the trap meta and try and push it out a bit more. So we're going to see a little bit more like diversity there, and it means they can push back and forwards with each meta of each season. They then moved on to say that IQ is an operator that is very important to them and is continually getting buffs and improvements, and she's definitely a character they constantly monitor so they can feel if they can change her or improve her. He then goes on to say Thatcher needs more of a revamp than a pure buff. He says right now he's in a situation where he's an attacker and he's useful and he's needed, but his gameplay feels a bit like an on and off kind of thing. Where like you're useful at the start maybe, where you're trying to breach, and then after that, kind of just useless. You kind of just fall back and just do your own thing, get kills, whatever. And he says they're investigating on how to make him a more interesting operator to play, to make him feel a bit more active, hopefully, and make him like a bit more diverse than having to just throw a grenade and be done with it. Because that's it. You throw the grenade and you're done. There's not much else to it. Whereas, say with like operators like Thermite, you can place your Thermite charge, you've got a bit of time before you detonate it, you've got a bit more thought to it, whereas, with Thatcher, it's throw and forget, basically. They then move on to talk about all other operator changes just in the long term. They said, generally speaking, all of the operators are being looked at to be changed, potentially revamped, potentially buffed. So, there's a lot of different changes coming, but don't expect any of these changes to be anytime soon. These are long-term projects they're looking at to try and improve operators. There's nothing set in stone for really early on in next season. It's all just going to come with time and length with Siege. And again, they said here the same goes for Tachanka. They're not talking about as buff as much as a revamp of the operator because they're aware that he isn't particularly good and he's got a bit of a problem with how he's sort of used and, just generally speaking. Another question that was asked is, when the next generation of consoles comes out, are you just going to port the operators or update the engine and basically make a Siege 2? So essentially the idea is here, are you going to, just move everything over to the new platform, make it look better quality, or are you going to just make a completely new game? Now, the response was actually a fantastic thing. I really like this response from Ubisoft. It said, right now, as long as the game is doing well, we will not make a Siege 2. Now, basically, what this means is, as long as Ubisoft are making money from Siege, as long as they have an active community player base, as long as they have people playing their game, they will not look to make a Siege 2, they will just keep expanding on Rainbow Six Siege. Again, another topic that was brought up heavily throughout this AMA was the fact that they're still looking at making 100 operators for this game in total. Now, again, that fills me with confidence. This is a game that is going to last. This is Ubisoft's answer to things like Counter-Strike and Call of Duty. This is their esports game they are going to support, and they're supporting it better than, say, Call of Duty do, because they're going to try and make it so Siege lasts and there is no need for a Siege 2. Potentially, if sales drop off, if the player base drops off, they might try and do like a revamp and make a Rainbow Six Siege 2. But hopefully, based on what they've said there, as long as there's support, and we know this for a fact that we're getting at least 2 more years of it, there is going to be a Rainbow Six Siege. For those of you that maybe aren't aware, at the last Pro League finals, they did announce that Ubisoft is supporting Pro League for Siege up until 2019. So, at the very least, we've got another 2 years of this game for them to sort of innovate and change it. Now, another cool thing that was mentioned that very briefly was the fact that, they're looking to try and improve everything steadily. Again, there's no immediate changes coming. They didn't sort of reveal anything about the future of Siege like anytime soon. They've just said, all of these major revamps for characters is going to be a planned change. And because of this, I can't remember the question, because again, I'm sort of trying to briefly go through this. One of the questions was something along the lines of, are you going to sort of change operators because they're going to fall out of the meta, because they're not going to be as popular? And because of that, Ubisoft, one of the developers did say, hey, look, generally speaking, we are going to, try and look at the chances of revamping characters, changing them, making them so they're more playable, more useful, they have more interesting things going on. And it's just, interesting things. We also got a question with, will we ever see IQ's face? The response was never say never. So obviously there's still a fair bit of mystery here. They're not willing to give out all the information. And now for probably the bit that a lot of people are most interested in. as I mentioned it right at the start, and that is, you know, what do you think to Tachanka's meta? That was one of the big questions. It was like, where do you think he is in your opinion? And Leroy directly admitted Tachanka is so far outside of the meta that he's basically playing a different game. They have some ideas for a revamp, but that is down the road. So essentially, here we go again. Ubisoft have flat out admitted, even with Tachanka's buff of his shield on his face, he's still not in the meta of the game. He's so far out that he's not worth playing in Siege. There's no point to him, you know, he has no relevancy, and because of that, Ubisoft are aware, they're aware that the community really wants to change him, really wants him to be more in the meta, because obviously Tachanka is one of the biggest memes in Siege. He has this huge fan base around his character. Or when we saw the guy who does the voice acting, again, there was a huge stuff around that. And Ubisoft are aware this is a character people want to see in the meta. So they have said they've got some ideas for a revamp. They're looking for things to change, but it is down the road. So don't expect to see any immediate changes to Tachanka. Just know that potentially in future we will be seeing a huge change. Maybe it'll be something like he'll have a remote turret that he has to operate. Maybe it'll be that he has like a full shield. Maybe they'll just give him the huge LMG and have the bipod as a deployable thing. We don't know, but at least, at the very least, they're making changes and they're looking to improve on things constantly. So that's pretty much all the AMA information that I found interesting. Obviously, there was a hell of a lot there. A hell of a lot more there that I didn't cover, and if you're interested, like I said, there's a link in the description below. Feel free to go and check it out. Maybe if you've got any ideas on how they might be revamping Tachanka, let me know in the comments below what you think. Like I said, I think it could be potentially just like a mobile turret, possibly, or maybe just a placeable turret that he has to use. I don't know, you know, it's all interesting stuff. We'll have to wait and see. But like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button, share the video with your friends, let more people see what's going on, share the AMA, spread the news for Tachanka fans. And with that being said, guys, I'll see you in the next one.